Part 55. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 579. ID Con 1708484. Bellamy stuck out her tongue and licked his mouth like a sideburn. Well, your analysis is good, Bellamy said appreciatively. Eddie's analysis allowed Bellamy's own wishes to be better recognized. After Bellamy learned of Grandet's death, he had the idea of seizing Grandet's wealth and power. What Eddie said made his behavior reasonable. At this time, a burly man said to Eddie, "Hey, Eddie, you are so hypocritical for always flattering Boss Bellamy like this." Eddie looked at the burly man and said, "Libas, don't be like this. What I said is indeed correct." The burly man named Libasi continued, "But what you said makes sense." Rebus looked at Bellamy and said, "Boss Bellamy, we really should do something." Bellamy looked at Rebus, and then glanced at the others. He said, "Everyone, if this is the case, I should just accept my fate and do reasonable things. Grandet's wealth and power there is no one to take over, and no one else is qualified, so I will do it." "No, we have to do it. Boss Bellamy, we will follow you," everyone at the table said loudly. Bellamy stood up from his seat happily and said boldly, "Cheers to the strength of the Bellamy pirates." Cheers. Everyone present raised their wine glasses and drank the red wine inside. After toasting, Bellamy returned to her seat. He looked at the people present with crazy eyes like dogs, and said, "Okay, since we have decided to do this, we must make a plan before we act, and everyone can express their opinions as much as they want." Eddie was still the first to speak out about his claims. "Boss Bellamy, if we want to take over Grandet's original power, the most important thing is to take over Grandet's wealth. With wealth, we can have everything else and buy more people," Eddie said to Bellamy. "Okay, tell me what to do," Bellamy looked at him and said. Eddie continued, "Based on years of operation, Grandet has mastered astonishing wealth in Magic Valley City, and has already controlled the most profitable industry in this prosperous port city. Specifically, the 4 core industries. Then it is the Grandet Bank that controls finance, the chain factories that control industry, the major shopping malls affiliated with Grandet in Magic Valley City, and the shipping company in Magic Valley City. If these 4 major industries affiliated with Grandet are controlled, then he controls the economic lifeline of Demon Valley City, and the specific wealth is incalculable." After hearing this, Bellamy clapped her hands and said, "That's right. But among the 4 major industries you mentioned, Grandet gave me the chain of factories, shopping malls, and shipping companies in order to win me over during his lifetime. Shares. Only the Grandet Bank does not. In this way, not only can I take them all, but I can also truly control the Grandet Bank. This has simply doubled my wealth many times." During his lifetime, Grandet used Bellamy's power to gain control of Magic Valley City, so he gave Bellamy a large share of the industry except Grandet's bank. Bellamy looked at Eddie again and said, "Then you will be responsible for taking over these core industries." "How about?" Eddie said very respectfully. Eddie originally worked for Boss Bellamy and the future of the Bellamy Pirates. Bellamy said happily, "Okay, I'll leave it to you. Others need it and must help him. You can allocate enough manpower and material resources to do this." Eddie said, "I promise to complete the task, and I know all the cotters of the 4 major industries. As long as we go out, they will definitely be loyal to us. After all, the strength of the Bellamy Pirates lies, but we must give them enough benefits can really buy them." "Go ahead and do it," Bellamy said happily. At this time, Rebus also said, "I also have a good idea." Bellamy looked at him and said, "Speak quickly." Rebus looked at Bellamy and said, "Boss Bellamy, don't you think that in order to truly rule Demon Valley City, we need to subdue the remnants of the security forces and security forces under Grandet?" "Oh," Bellamy asked. Libasi said confidently, Armed force is the cornerstone of our rule. The guards and remnants of the security forces that originally belonged to Grandet are beneficial to our rule. After all, governing such a prosperous city as Magic Valley, it requires a lot of energy. The security forces and the remnants of the public security forces are very familiar with the rule of Magic Valley City, and it will save a lot of effort to subdue them. And even if these armed forces are subdued, then the Magic Valley, those administrative agencies in the city, will also follow the trend and allegiance to us. In this way, we can say that we have taken over the entire ruling system of Magic Valley City. Bellamy nodded after hearing this and said, "Very good. Both wealth and force are indispensable." Rebus looked at a big man sitting at the dining table again, and said to him dissatisfied, "Hey, Sax, stop playing with women all the time. Share your worries with Boss Bellamy." The man he was questioning was a big, burly man, about the same size as Rebus. But he has long blue curly hair, wearing a grey plush coat. Beside him was a beautiful woman with blonde hair. "Oh, Rebus. You're always so excited." Sax looked at him and said. After hearing the question, the blonde long-haired beauty in Saki's arms also snorted dissatisfiedly at Libasi. Sakis looked at the blonde-haired beauty and said lovingly, "Okay, Lily, don't care about him." Sarkis then looked in Bellamy's direction. "Boss Bellamy, they have said everything I want to say. But I have one more question, that is, we want to seize the dominance of Demon Valley City. Then the Ape Mountain Alliance army that destroyed Grandet will not give up. Their goal is to overthrow Grandet's rule. And then they will definitely take the opportunity to seize the dominance of Demon Valley City with their prestige," Sakis said to Bellamy. Bellamy looked at Sarkis and said, "You're right. Since the Ape Mountain United Army defeated the Grandet forces, they must also take advantage of the trend to gain the dominance of Magic Valley City. The results won't let to others. So the Aruyama United Army must be our enemy." After hearing about the Aruyama United Army, the faces of everyone present became more serious. In fact, the Bellamy pirates have been secretly observing the movements in Magic Valley City. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 580. ID Con 1708485. Sarkis continued, "Boss Bellamy, if we pay more attention to this new enemy. After all, the Ape Mountain United Army actually has such a terrifying giant sea dock. It can be said to be both offensive and defensive. It can also be used as a base. Even if it is our powerful fleet that is also troublesome. It is said that the fleet of the security forces before was wiped out by that giant sea dock. Today, the fortifications of the security forces on the coast are also easily destroyed by the forts of that giant sea dock." Thinking of this, Bellamy's expression became a lot more serious. He then said, "Is that giant offshore dock? I have been up there before. At that time, the owner of the offshore dock was not the current Sarasama United Army. But I have to admit that the giant offshore dock is indeed very strong. Only by moving it above, only by getting rid of the people can the giant offshore dock lose its combat effectiveness. If this is the case, then I need to personally take action and directly give the opponent a blow. Kill all the people on the giant offshore dock." Rebus, Sakis, Eddie, and other senior officials all looked at Bellamy. "Leave this to me. I'll deal with the Ape Mountain United Army." "Abolish that giant offshore dock," Bellamy said. Sakis and Rebus looked at Bellamy in admiration. Bellamy himself is not just as fierce and wild as the sideburns, he himself is also brave enough to fight in person. In many cases, he is the first to go out and is more active than his subordinates. Of course, no one in the entire Bellamy pirates except Bellamy is capable of dealing with the Ape Mountain United Army and the giant sea dock. Bellamy can become a powerful pirate who dominates the sea, not only by virtue of strength, but also by her own charm. He worships the strong, and Don Quixote da Flamingo, one of the king's 7 martial seas, and he himself becomes a powerful pirate. But he also made his followers adore him. He took the lead and bravely rushed to the forefront. Let the subordinates feel admiration. Bellamy said, "Okay, the main things are settled like this. I will deal with the Ape Mountain United Army. Eddie will take over the industrial cotters. Rebus, you are in charge of taking over the guards, and Sax, you are in charge of taking over remnants of the vigilante. Others also assist. Obey." The main cotters of the Bellamy pirates, including Rebus and Sarkis, said. There is actually a reason why Bellamy arranged it this way. Because Rebus and Sarkis are the two strongest among the cotters of the Bellamy pirates under him.in. This way, important tasks are given, which can stabilize the hearts of the pirates. At this time, a woman suddenly asked, "I also have a question." Bellamy looked at her, and it was a woman with pink hair. She is the ship doctor of the Bellamy pirates. "What's the matter, Murray? Tell me." Bellamy looked at her and said. The woman named Muley said, "But according to the information, Grandet also has a daughter named Eugenie. Will that daughter be elected as the new heir by the original Grandet's forces?" After hearing this, Bellamy said, "It seems that old man Grandet has such a daughter. But I don't think she can become that kind of climate." Eddie also said at this time, "Don't worry. That Eugenie is a willful young lady. She doesn't have this ability at all. Moreover, the forces that originally belonged to Grandet all have their own agendas, and they are all interested in profit. That Eugenie is of no use at all. She is just a kind-hearted and naive young lady. She poses no threat to our plan. It turned out to be like this. I was wondering if I should get rid of her," Murray said. Eddie said, "It's useless to kill and torture without value." Bellamy looked at the senior cotters at the dining table and said, "Okay, let's continue to enjoy dinner. If you have any questions, you can continue to talk." The laughter started again at the dining table. And the weird sound of Bellamy's chugging and eating. Time passed by, and finally the sun fell on Gaia Island and the surrounding sea again. The port of Magic Valley City was in a mess after a carnival celebration party last night. There are fallen people everywhere and tables and chairs covered with various foods. After a night of carnival last night, almost everyone who attended the banquet was asleep. Hulu, hulu. The grunts mixed together and echoed in the area near the port like muffled thunder. Luffy even withstood a super big belly, and fell asleep with the orangutan who also had a big belly. The match between the two of them last night was really inconclusive, and even the onlookers who were counting the amount of food the two of them ate were finally so tired that they fell asleep first. Then the two continued to eat desperately for a long time, but they were exhausted and fell asleep. But in terms of the amount to eat, orangutans used to eat meat and bones together, so they should eat more. But Luffy, relying on the spirit of not admitting defeat, eats a lot that can compete with the orangutan. Rog, Sauron, the Ninja King and the ape still had wine glasses in their hands and were lying on the ground snoring. There was no wine left in the wooden barrel next to it. The four of them stopped when they got drunk, and drank extremely happily. Sanji was also lying near Nami and Robin. Last night, the beautiful sailors and chefs of the Saruyama Alliance then toasted vigorously and drank this always dignified man down. Nami couldn't help but drink too much and got very drunk. Robin returned to a tent to rest peacefully. The goddess of the fountain took care of her this time. Chopper also fell to the ground drunk with the doctors who admired him and couldn't wake up. But some people are still awake. On the seaside of the port pier, Mont Blanc Kulik stood here. The burly man looked at the rising sun over the sea. The bright sun in the morning gradually rises from the sea level into the sky as if it is a new baby. Today is both a starting point and an important inflection point. Mont Blanc Kulik took a deep breath after leaving these words. Although the Yuanshan United Army defeated the Grandet forces, it still needs a lot of effort to see whether the Magic Valley City can truly usher in a new life. Everything is subject to change, and no one can guarantee that there will be no more accidents. He looked at the sun for a while, then turned his head to the direction of the city. This bustling transit port city has experienced the impact of war and catastrophe, but basically everything is intact except for the area near the port. Now all the houses in Magic Valley City are baptized by the morning Sunday. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 581. ID Con 1709263. Magic Valley City is about to welcome a new life, but it still contains a crisis. Looking at the revived Magic Valley City, Mont Blanc Kulik secretly made up his mind to make the city a better place. Time also passed quickly. By 10 o'clock this morning, most of the people had woken up too. Rog, Zoro, the king of ninjas, the orangutan, Nami, and Sanji all woke up. Robin stayed in the tent because of his injuries, and the goddess of spring took care of her. Usopp, Chopper, Luffy and the orangutan are still asleep. Zoro and Nami walked up to Luffy and the orangutan. It's really sleeping. Both of them eat like footballs. Sauron looked at the two of them and complained. Nami said, "Would you like to pour some cold water on them?" Nami glanced at the surrounding crew members of the Iruyama United Army. These people are all shrinking back, and they seem to be a little unwilling to do it. After all, if you pour cold water on Luffy and the orangutan, they don't want to cause trouble. Nami looked at these people, sighed and said, "I really have no guts." Nami then personally brought 2 buckets of water over, and poured a bucket of water on each of Luffy's and the orangutan's heads. Crash! After Luffy and the orangutan were watered by Nami, their faces just twitched. If this doesn't work. Nami's face suddenly became ugly. Zoro looked at Nami and knew that the situation was not good. Seeing Nami's expression, the people around were also worried. Dong 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 dong. Quickly accompanied by the sound of fists, Luffy and the orangutan screamed. "Ah, it's still night," Luffy said as he sat up with stars in his eyes. "What's going on? Why does my head hurt so much?" the orangutan said, stroking the swollen bumps on his head. Both of them ate like a ball, and now they woke up and saw Nami standing in front of them with her hips akimbo. Nami glared at the two of them, and said, "You guys have slept for too long too. All right, Mont Blanc Kulik is going to have an important meeting now. Hurry up and attend it too." "Ah, all right," said the orangutan. Luffy looked at the orangutan and asked, "Who among us won last night?" The orangutan looked at his own big belly that was propped up, and then at Luffy's big belly that was propped up. "Let's not distinguish between equals," the orangutan said. "Like this, let's have another match in the future," Luffy said. "Okay, but now we have business to do," said the orangutan. Afterwards, the orangutan and Luffy hurried to gather for a meeting. Chopper and Usopp were basically of no use to the overall operation, but someone woke them up to attend the meeting as well. Mont Blanc Kulik gathered high-ranking members of the Straw Hat Pirates and the Iruyama combined forces to start the meeting. "Everyone, after this great victory, we have indeed wiped out Grandet and the main force of the security forces. But what follows is a discussion about the future of Magic Valley City." Mont Blanc Kulik said straight to the point. All the people, including Rog and Sauron, as well as the apes and orangutans, listened carefully. "Although we have won, the situation in Magic Valley City has not really stabilized. Therefore, after we have completed the mission of overthrowing Grandet's rule, our Ape Mountain United Army should help Magic Valley City establish a new stable regime. It is the goal of the Ape Mountain Allied Army." Mont Blanc Kulik directly explained the new goal of the Ape Mountain Allied Army. Hearing this, everyone understood the matter. "That's it, boss. Then I think how about you lead us and become the mayor of Magic Valley City," the orangutan suddenly said. "Yes, boss. We have been fighting for so long. And there are also many residents of Demon Valley City who support us. This is good, the orangutan also said. Mont Blanc Kulik was silent for a while, and said, our goal should not be to gain power. Many forces often replace the previous ruler after their final victory, and even become the object of revolution again in the end. But we are different. The Ape Mountain United Army is based on resisting oppression. The people of all walks of life in Magic Valley City should be allowed to choose the most suitable leader according to their own wishes. All we have to do is escort. Rog, Sanji, Zoro, the ape, and the orangutan all looked at Mont Blanc Kulik seriously. Judging from the current situation, Mont Blanc Kulik can definitely take advantage of the situation and become the ruler of Magic Valley City. But he actually made such a decision, which is simply admirable. What a person who is indifferent to fame and wealth. Mont Blanc Kulik looked at everyone and said, that's it? Everyone knows our future goals. He looked at Rog, Zoro, and Sanji again. Everyone, thanks to you we were able to win before. But if you don't mind, do you still want to continue to cooperate with us before the situation here is completely stable? Mont Blanc Kulik said politely and seriously. Does this need to be said? Of course, Rog said. We will continue to fight with everyone together, Sauron said. Since there is no real new life here, then we will continue to work hard, Sanji said. Sanji actually has his own thoughts in his heart. That's because he saw many beautiful girls in Magic Valley City. How could he tolerate the continued turmoil in Magic Valley City? Then those beautiful girls would definitely be implicated. Usopp also got motivated, patted his chest and said, okay, leave it to us. I, Captain Usopp, will lead everyone to continue fighting side by side with the friends of the Saruyama United Army. After hearing this, Luffy also said, okay, let's continue fighting together. Chopper also said, we are all friends now, let's fight hard. The King of Ninja and Nami remained silent, and they also acquiesced. Now the Straw Hat Pirates will continue to operate with the Aruyama United Army until Jangmogu City's situation really stabilized. At this time, the orangutan asked, then what should we do next? Mont Blanc Kulik said, our next step is to try to get the civil representatives of Magic Valley City to negotiate and discuss the construction of a new Magic Valley City. Everyone continued to discussing which forces should try to negotiate first. Just as Mont Blanc Kulik was having a meeting with them, the Bellamy pirates have already quickly launched operations in Magic Valley City. It was still dark today, so Bellamy and his team quickly split up and started taking action. Eddie followed the plan to conquer the cotters of the four major industries. Rebus went to subdue the guards. Sarkis went to subdue the remnants of the security forces. Bellamy himself is in charge of dealing with the Ape Mountain Combined Army. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 582. ID Con 1709283. On the street near Grandet Bank in Magic Valley City, Eddie and dozens of crew members of the Bellamy Pirates walked to the Grandet Bank. Eddie looked up at the bank sign above the Grandet Bank. It's really magnificent. Don't look at that stingy old man who loves money so much. But he is willing to decorate the bank like this. He still knows where to be rich, Eddie said. For example, banks are different from factories. Factories can be built in remote suburbs, and the production environment does not need to be too luxurious. But banks are different. The bank is located in a prosperous urban area, and the construction must be rich, so that customers can feel that the bank has strength, so they will come to do business. Grandet is indeed a genius in money. He is very clear about where to be extravagant and where to be stingy. Eddie led the crew behind him into the gate of Grandet Bank. After they entered the hall, they began to observe the environment together. Wait a moment, sir. We are temporarily closed today. A staff member in a suit came over and said. Get away. Before he could get close to Eddie, he was pushed away by a burly crew member. Eddie took a few steps forward, and arrived at a counter with people. Although there are people at this counter now, there is a sign of closed business in front of it. Eddie looked at the staff at the counter with a calculating look. The staff member he looked at was uncomfortable and uncomfortable. "Okay, I want to see your president. Don't say that he's not here or something. Just tell him that Mr. Bellamy's people want to talk to him." Eddie's tone was calm but irresistible said. When the staff member heard Bellamy's name, his face immediately changed. He quickly said, "It turns out to be Mr. Bellamy's person. Okay, I'll notify the president immediately. This gentleman and everyone else, please take a seat." Then the staff member called another staff member and said something. The staff member nodded and hurried to do it. Eddie and the crew are also sitting together on the sofa in the bank lobby. The staff in the lobby of the bank deliberately distanced themselves from this group of people. Bellamy's reputation was feared by many people. After a while, the bank employee came back. But behind him was an obese middle-aged man in a tuxedo. Although the middle-aged man is obese, he is well dressed, and his eyes are somewhat sleek. This is the president of Grandet's Bank, Grandet's confidant when he was alive. The president of Grandet Bank came over led by the staff. Eddie looked at him until the president of the Grandet Bank came up to him. "President, this gentleman is someone sent by Mr. Bellamy," the staff introduced. The obese president of the Grandet Bank looked at Eddie, sized him up, and said politely to him, "Sir, you are the one who was sent by Mr. Bellamy to talk to me. May I ask your surname?" "Great name." Eddie finally stood up slowly and said coldly but politely, "My name is Eddie, and I am the authorized agent sent by Mr. Bellamy to discuss matters with you. You are the president of Grandet Bank. Okay, let's get to the point as soon as possible." "Follow me, please," said the president of the Grandet Bank. He led Eddie down a hallway to the side of the hall. The obese president ordered the staff again, "Get some refreshments for those accompanying people. Be polite." Then the staff began to get some cakes and black tea for the accompanying Bellamy Pirates crew. The crew members took the cake and black tea very arrogantly. But none of them said thank you, and everyone had a cold face. These staff members were all people who had heard of Bellamy before. It was unimaginable how powerful they were, and it was as expected when they saw it today. Eddie himself and the president of the Grandet Bank finally walked through the corridor and entered an office. "Please sit down," the fat bank president said politely. "Thank you," Eddie said indifferently but politely. The two sat on opposite chairs at a fine oak table. The staff served black tea again. The president of the Grandet Bank glanced at the staff and motioned them to leave, accompanied by the door being closed. Now only the president of Grandet Bank and Eddie are left in this office. The president of Grandet Bank looked at Eddie and said, "Mr. Eddie, what is the purpose of Mr. Bellamy sending you here?" "As far as I know, Mr. Bellamy never stores his money in this bank inside the Grandet Bank. And he has no shares in this bank." Eddie looked at the president of the Grandet Bank, and he said, "Don't worry, Mr. President. We are not here to blackmail or rob. What we want is cooperation. Or more clearly, the Grandet Bank belonging to Mr. Bellamy." Eddie quickly took out a piece of letter paper from his clothes and handed it to the president of Grandet Bank. The president of the Grandet Bank took the letter paper and began to read it. "Mr. President, it is a pity that Mayor Grandet died unexpectedly. However, Grandet Bank, as the most important financial company in Magic Valley City, needs a new person who can protect it from continuing to thrive in the future. Then I am willing to be this person. The situation in Magic Valley City is turbulent right now. I, Bellamy, guarantee the safety and interests of the Grandet Bank with everything I have personally, including the safety and interests of Mr. President and all employees. So, Mr. President, please make a quick decision and belong to the person who can really keep Grandet Bank." Although this letter was polite on the surface and even said that he was considerate of the other party, It had an unquestionable tone. In other words, Bellamy is going to order the Grandet Bank. After reading the letter, the president of Grandet Bank raised his head and looked at Eddie. Eddie asked, "Mr. President, have you finished reading it? After reading it, please make a decision." The president of Grandet Bank looked at Eddie and said, "Actually, Mr. Bellamy's proposal is indeed very good. The employees of Grandet Bank and I also thought about our own way out after the death of Mayor Grandet. But let me ask again, Mr. Bellamy said that he will use everything he has to defend the interests of the Grandet Bank and its original members. Is this true? The president of the Grandet Bank is not stupid, although he knows that he cannot refuse. But the other party must be given a firmer stance. Only in this way can his own interests be more fully guaranteed. Anyway, in order to win him over, Bellamy will definitely and will indeed give him a very generous treatment." Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 583. ID Con 1709836. Eddie said firmly, "No problem, it's not just Mr. Bellamy. Any of his subordinates, including me, will resolutely defend the interests of Grandet Bank. The president and other employees can also get a large amount of wealth cannot be enjoyed. You can rest assured that the new owner of Grandet Bank will provide members with treatment that exceeds the past." After hearing Eddie's firm reassurance, the fat and smooth bank president's face became very happy. Even pretended to be a little moved. "Mr. Bellamy and Mr. Eddie really value me. The Grandet Bank will definitely and will firmly belong to Mr. Bellamy's." The president of the Grandet Bank said happily and moved. Eddie said, "Okay, Mr. President. That's all." He took out his watch again, looked at it, and said, "I still need to be in a hurry. It's going well here. But there are other things that need to be done quickly. So I will leave first." Eddie stood up from the chair. The teacup in front of him was still steaming. "Mr. Eddie, please wait a moment," the president of Grandet Bank said. Yeah, Eddie looked at him first. "The Grandet Bank needs to go through the transfer of ownership procedures, and I will do it as soon as possible," the president of the Grandet Bank said politely. "Oh, that's all right," Eddie said. The president of Grandet Bank quickly approached Eddie, and personally stuffed a piece of paper into Eddie's hand. "Mr. Eddie, here is a check. It contains 5 million Baileys. It's just a small thing. Please accept it," the fat bank president said with a smooth face. Eddie glanced at the check casually and said, "Thank you for your hard work. I will report to Mr. Bellamy that you are very willing to cooperate. Don't worry, Mr. Bellamy will definitely not treat you badly. You don't have to give it to me after all, I still have a lot to do." "Then Mr. Eddie, please walk slowly." The fat bank president showed a smooth expression on his face. Eddie then walked out of the office. After bidding farewell to Eddie, the bank president sat back in his chair. He was smiling. He knew very well that Bellamy, as the new owner of the Grandet Bank, was bound to give huge benefits to people like him. "Grandet, you died too late." The obese bank president glanced at an oil painting on the wall. That oil painting is a portrait of Grandet. Grandet named the Grandet Bank, which controls the finance of Magic Valley City, after himself. In the end, it ended up belonging to others after death. For this president, although Grandet also gave considerable benefits when he was alive, he still strictly supervised his work. As a result, a huge part of the proceeds became Grandet's private wealth. And now that Bellamy was about to become the new owner of Grandet Bank, he could gain more benefits by hugging Bellamy's thigh. Eddie returned to the hall and led the accompanying crew out of here. After walking out of the Grandet Bank, Eddie continued to walk out without looking back. A crew member on the side asked him and said, "Master Eddie," he agreed, "right." Eddie said indifferently, "Of course. But this bank is really shameless, and I'm afraid the other 3 industrial cotters of Grandet are not much stronger." Although Eddie did not reject the president's check, he deeply despised the president. Eddie followed Bellamy. In addition to Bellamy's strength, he was also impressed by Bellamy's charm. In other words, those who follow Bellamy are also somewhat heroic people. There is no one like this president who is a powerful person. When he sees a new powerful person, he will join in the trend and join him without hesitation. Okay, let's follow the plan. Hurry up to the manager of the large shopping mall, Eddie said. Eddie led 30 members of the Bellamy Pirates crew and left here quickly. While Eddie was subduing the cotters of the 4 major industries, Lebasai quickly went to subdue the guards of Magic Valley City. Rebus led 100 Bellamy Pirates crew members to the headquarters office building of the security force in the urban area of Magic Valley City. Lebasai led a crew of 100 lively and vigorous to the front of this majestic office building. It's finally here, Lebasai said, looking at the office building. This security force headquarters office building is 10 stories high. The office building of the headquarters of the security force is very solemn and majestic. Rebus led his men and began to walk towards the gate of the guard force headquarters office building. Okay, let's go in together, Rebus said. Rebus led his fully armed crew and began to walk towards the gate of the security force headquarters office building. There are also some armed guards outside the gate of the guard force headquarters office building. These guards looked at the menacing Lebaki and the heavily armed crew behind him and were frightened. Who are these people? What are they going to do? This is the headquarters of the security force. They actually want to break into this place. More than a dozen guards with live ammunition were very scared. Although they were armed with rifles, they dared not attack. The last officer reluctantly stood at the gate. When Rebus arrived, he asked, "Excuse me, what can I do?" Rebus looked at him disdainfully, and said, "We are Mr. Bellamy's subordinates, and we are here to talk to the commander of the guard." The officer shuddered when he heard Bellamy's name. Bellamy's men, he had 100 guts and would not dare to fight against him. So it's Bellamy's subordinate. "Please allow me to report anything," the officer said with a sad face. Rebus said impatiently, "I don't have that time. I'll go in first and wait for him inside." The officer did not dare to stop him and had no choice but to let Rebus lead his troops in. Rebus and his men entered the office building of the headquarters of the security forces aggressively. After entering the lobby on the first floor of the security force headquarters, Rebus glanced around with fierce eyes. The faces of the guards in this hall all changed. He walked to an office counter and asked, "I'm Mr. Bellamy's subordinate, and I want to find the commander of the security forces." Just one short sentence. But the security force personnel in charge of the work turned pale with fright, and he hurriedly contacted the commander of the security force with a phone bug. In an office on the top 10th floor of the security force headquarters office building. The commander of the guard forces was sitting behind his desk thinking. Mayor Grandet died, and most of the security forces were lost. It seems that the dominance of Magic Valley City will change from now on. The burly middle-aged man with a rough beard said with emotion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 584. ID Con 1709837. At this time, a phone bug on his desk suddenly rang. Polo, 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 Polo. The guard commander thought that a sudden call in this sensitive period must be very important, so he picked up the phone. Hello, I'm the commander of the security forces, the commander of the security forces said. Commander, this is the lobby of the headquarters on the first floor. Now the first floor is suddenly invaded by a group of people who claim to be under Bellamy. Said tremblingly to the other side. What? The guard commander said in shock. Bellamy's men have entered here. They said they want to see you, Commander, the other side said nervously. The commander of the security forces' face became a little ugly, and he thought about it carefully. Why did you find him? Now that the mayor of Grandet died, there must be some forces who want to regain control of this bustling transit trade port city. Bellamy was Grandet's ally before, but he must also want to swallow the whole piece of fat in Magic Valley City. It can be said that Bellamy's intention is to subdue the former Grandet forces. Commander, please come to the lobby on the first floor as soon as possible, the phone bug urged urgently from the other side. Understood, I'll go over right away, the commander of the guard force said quickly. The commander of the guard force quickly put the telephone receiver on the phone bug's head. The guard commander quickly stood up from his seat, opened the door and left the office. Here comes someone, the commander of the security force quickly called the two guards patrolling the corridor to go down together. He walked quickly down the corridor. Finally, he continued to go up the stairs from each floor to the next floor. He walked quickly through the stairs from the 10th floor to the first floor. Finally came to the hall on the first floor. As soon as he entered the hall, he saw a burly man leading a large group of people dressed as a sturdy crew standing here. Rebus also saw the commander of the guard force at this time. The two met each other's eyes and looked at each other. The commander of the guard force between Rebus wore a senior officer's uniform with medals, a tie, and some exquisite medals on his body. And that face has a rough beard, and his eyes are piercing. He looked like a high-ranking military officer. The commander of the guard force looked at Libesi, and saw that Libesi was a burly man. He was wearing a dark red shirt, but he wore a white wool hat on his head. It is blocking. That face is even more sturdy, because the teeth are too big, it is difficult to close the mouth. But this burly man has no eyebrows. Combined with the white wool hat on his head, it could be said that this burly man has no hair. He may not only have no eyebrows, he may not even have hair. But now is not the time to think about those useless things. The commander of the security force looked at Rebus and said, "Excuse me, are you the person sent by Mr. Bellamy?" Rebus said in a rich voice, "Yes, I am the person sent by Mr. Bellamy. And I am one of his three most capable generals, arms Caulibus." After the commander of the guard force heard about the weapon Curibus, he was suddenly shocked. Having served as the commander of the security forces in Demon Valley City for many years, he still knows a lot about things here. Bellamy's strength has always been a legendary existence. Bellamy still has 3 core cotters under his command. Also became the 3 go-getters. That is the big sword Sakis, the weapon Curibus, and the staff Eddie. These 3 are top figures even within the Bellamy pirates. Among them, Armory Curibus is known for his impatience and domineering personality. He has always been very direct and extreme in doing things, not giving his opponents much leeway. It turned out to be Mr. Bellamy's subordinate. Then Mr. Rebus, it must be very important for you to come here to see me, the commander of the security force said. Although he knew that Libesi was not easy to deal with, but after all, the commander of the guard force was also experienced, and he was able to deal with the opponent very calmly. Rebus looked at the commander of the guard force and said, "Of course, I came here to discuss important matters with you under the entrustment of Mr. Bellamy. Now let me just say it directly, that is Mr. Bellamy's intention to incorporate you are the core guard force of Magic Valley City." Rebus stated the purpose straight to the point. It turned out to be like this. The commander of the guard force looked directly at Rebus and said with a sigh. Rebus continued to add, "Now that Mayor Grandet is dead, Magic Valley City cannot be without a master for a day. Then a strong and capable person is needed to protect Magic Valley City. And the security forces know this place very well. Situation. So I need you to cooperate and accept the leadership of Mr. Bellamy. In this case, all the Magic Valley City security forces will receive rewards. And the treatment will definitely be better than before. Okay, Commander. Please be a decide." Speaking of this, Libus' tone softened a little. Rebus took out another letter and handed it to the commander of the guard force. The commander of the guard force took it and read the contents of the letter paper. What was written on it was Bellamy's personal letter, and the content was to recruit the guards of Magic Valley City. Of course, a very generous reward was promised. After reading the contents of the letter, the commander of the guard force also looked at Rebus again. The reason why Rebus broke into the guard force headquarters office building directly and brought so many crew members with him. An important purpose is to disarm the guards. Then hand over Bellamy's personal letter. This kind of combination of soft and hard can better achieve the goal. The commander of the guard force said, "Now that Mayor Grandet has passed away, we are indeed in a state of chaos. If a strong leader can lead us, we are very willing. In this case, we are also willing to accept the leadership of Mr. Bellamy." After hearing this, Libba's face became happy. "Okay, after all, the commander is a sensible person," Rebus said. Now Rebus can be said to have completed the task. The guard force of Magic Valley City has now successfully belonged to Bellamy. However, Rebus still felt that the matter was not finished. He continued to the commander of the guard force, "Commander, please call all the key officers under your command. We will tell them about the situation." The commander of the security force also fell into thinking after hearing this, and then said, "Okay." After a while, in a conference room on the 5th floor of the guard force headquarters office building, a meeting of dozens of people was held. In this conference room, Rebus and the commander of the guard presided over the meeting. Others present were senior officers of the guard force. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Le'er a Dream. Chapter 585. ID Con 1710381. There are many areas in Magic Valley City, including the Port Security Area, the Urban Security Area, and there are many divisions in the Urban Security Area. Port Guard Chief Razel is also here. Razel and other high-ranking officers knew that the guards had already defected to Bellamy. The commander of the guard force first glanced at the group of senior officers. "Everyone, the mayor of Grandet is dead now. The security force also needs to continue to work to maintain the safety and stability of Magic Valley City. Therefore, we need a new strong leader to lead us. Mr. Bellamy volunteered to take up this important task. We now have no other choice but to be loyal to the new leader," the commander of the guard force said to many senior officers. He scanned the people present, but found no one who had any intention of objecting. "Okay, if everyone agrees, please raise your arms to vote," the guard commander said. Razel was the first to raise his arms, and the other senior officers also raised their arms one after another. However, there was still one person in the crowd who did not move. The commander of the guard force looked at the man and quickly frowned. "Sir Winston, didn't you hear what I said?" the commander of the guard force said quickly. The man who refused to raise his arm was named Winster. Winster is a senior officer of the security force in the urban area, but unlike most of the security forces, he is hired by money. He is a native of Magic Valley City and wants to realize his ideals through hard work. But his character is also upright, unwilling to take orders from others, but his ability is very strong, which makes him able to serve as the backbone officer of the security force. Winster glanced at the commander of the guard force, and then he glanced at Rebus. "Sorry, I will not submit to any power," Winston said, very dissatisfied. At this time, not only the commander of the security force had a very ugly face. Libasi beside him also blushed and was about to attack immediately. Rebus came from the front and came near Winster's seat. Every foot of his was the trembling ground. Rebus stared straight at Winster like a killing machine. Even the rebellious Winster felt extremely uncomfortable for a while when he stared at him like this. "You can say it again," Rebus said to Winster, full of momentum. Facing this burly and fierce man, Winston turned his back on him. Although Mayor Grandet was stingy during his lifetime, he was also a local rich man in Magic Valley City. "Bellamy, a stinky pirate from the North Sea, dared to ride on our heads. With his virtue, he is worthy of it. I have been huddled in that unprotected place on the northeast rock island, Winster said with disgust. Libesi's expression froze. He didn't expect Winster to say such extreme things. His body began to tremble, not from fear, but from endless anger. You. Rebus uttered a few words tremblingly. Many senior officers of the surrounding security forces were so frightened that they quickly stayed away from the two men. Even the guard commander's face was extremely ugly. Boom. Rebus suddenly took out a large caliber double-barreled shotgun from his clothes, pointed it at Winster's left arm and pulled the trigger, and it was a shot. The two bullets fired by the double-barreled shotgun were extremely destructive, smashing Winster's left arm into pieces. The minced meat and blood were mixed together, and the bones inside were shattered. The mixture of bones, minced meat, and blood looked extremely terrifying. What? Winston screamed in pain. His screams reverberated throughout the meeting room. Rebus aimed his double-barreled shotgun at Winster's right arm again. Boom. Another shot. Due to the extremely high power of the double-barreled shotgun at close range, Winster's right arm was almost broken. Next, Rebus continued to aim at Winster's left and right legs with a double-barreled shotgun and fired 2 consecutive shots. Ah, I was wrong, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. Under the severe pain, Winston finally begged for mercy. Libesi has a murderous look on his face, like a wild beast. There is no regret in this world. Rebus aimed his double-barreled shotgun at Winster's head. He pulled the trigger of the double-barreled shotgun. Boom. There was a piercing gunshot. Lots of blood spattered out, together with rotten brains. Blood and brains were splashed everywhere, even Libesi's clothes and face were covered with blood and brains. Rebus was unmoved at all. He just lifted the barrel of the double-barreled shotgun and blew it with his mouth. This kid made me look dirty again, Rebus said, dissatisfied. He left from Winster's seat and returned to the front of the conference room. Many senior military officers looked at Winster's horrific corpse. Limbs were beaten to pieces, and the skull was shattered by double-barreled shotgun bullets at close range. Blood and brains splashed everywhere. Vomit. Some senior officers were nauseated. Everyone, let's continue our topic, Rebus said in a thick voice. The commander of the guard force was on the side. His face was extremely ugly. Rebus has now completely become the god of death that everyone present needs to look up to. Libesi's clothes and face were covered with blood and brains, but he continued to speak naturally. Isn't this the murderous devil from hell, or something? In fact, besides Winster, there were several senior officers who looked down on Bellamy from the bottom of their hearts. After all, Bellamy was a pirate. And Grandet is also a wealthy man at any rate. Now that Rebus had killed Winster so brutally, their souls were almost scared out of their bodies. Rebus is just one of the 3 go-getters, and it is so terrifying, so how powerful and terrifying Bellamy is. Rebus looked at the senior officers of the security forces present with fierce eyes that did not tolerate objection. Everyone, after you are loyal to Mr. Bellamy, you will get generous treatment. So I hope that you can conscientiously carry out Mr. Bellamy's orders in the future. Do you understand? Rebus said fiercely. Clear. These senior officers were so frightened that they had already become very well behaved. Now they dare not disobey Rebus's orders. Libesi saw that the senior officers of the guard force were all subdued, and felt that the matter had also been settled. He turned his head to look at the guard commander again. The commander of the guard force also had an ugly face. It was very unbearable for him to have such a thing happen before his eyes. Rebus killed Winster on the spot, even though Winster had crazy words. But this also proves that Bellamy's gang is still a brutal and unscrupulous pirate group. But Rebus did something more outstanding. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 586. ID Con 1710387. Commander, I hope you can continue to do a better job in the future. The security forces will definitely be valued by Mr. Bellamy in the future, Rebus said to him with oppressive eyes. No problem, I will resolutely serve Mr. Bellamy, the guard commander said. Okay, everyone present. Mr. Bellamy will send you a huge reward soon. Then, everyone waits to drink and celebrate, Lebasai said, looking around at everyone present. Rebus used coercion and inducement to intimidate and appease the top brass of the security force. The meeting went on for a while before it was over. Okay, this meeting is over. From now on, the guards will be Mr. Bellamy's loyal subordinates, as long as everyone works hard to abide by their duties and obey orders. Everyone has a share in the generous treatment, Rebus said honestly, said the voice. After the meeting was over, Rebus talked with the commander of the guard force and then left. Rebus led his fully armed crew out of the office building of the headquarters of the guard force. Libakasi also looked back at this 10-story solemn and majestic office building. Things are still very good. This group of people can only be useful by relying on deterrence and bribery. Let Boss Bellamy know later. He will be very happy, Lebasai said excitedly. Rebus successfully subdued the guards with a strong deterrent method and bribes. For example, Eddie just bribed the cotters of the 4 major industries with direct benefits. That is also because the cotters of the 4 major industries are all profit-seeking people, and the employees under them also only work for their own interests. So it doesn't matter if you change the master. Money is everything to the president of the Grandet Bank, and Bellamy, the new master, can give them more lucrative benefits, so the president of the Grandet Bank directly pledged his allegiance to Bellamy without hesitation. But the security force of Magic Valley City is different. Violent institutions like the security force need a certain deterrent force to be able to deter them and make them obey orders. Therefore, Libas, Laway and Wooing can successfully complete the goal. While Eddie and Libas were taking action, Sarkis was also doing the action he was responsible for. Sarkis is in charge of the trickiest task of the 3. That is to subdue the remnants of the security forces in Magic Valley City. In the central area of Mogu City, a large-scale building is located here. This building is 8 stories high. Although it is not as tall as the headquarters of the security forces, it occupies a larger area. There is also a large square around it. This building is the office building of the headquarters of the security forces. Sarkis led 50 men to the office building of the security force headquarters. Okay, let's get ready to go in, Sarkis said to his men. Sarkis led 50 men and began to move towards the gate of the building. Although Sarkis and his men are not as aggressive as Rebus, but he himself seemed to have a sinister and vicious aura. Rebus is like a fiery hot weapon, while Sarkis is a cold weapon like yin and cold. The security forces guarding the gate of the security force headquarters office building felt trembling for a while when they saw Sarkis. Although Sarkis is not so sharp, he is more like an executioner who can kill people at any time. Sarkis arrived at the gate of the security forces headquarters office building. He scanned the 5 burly and tall security forces with his cold eyes. I am a representative sent by Mr. Bellamy. I want to discuss matters with General Durham, the Commander-in-Chief of the security forces. Sarkis said in a cold tone. The faces of these security officers and soldiers all turned ugly. As soon as they heard that they were Bellamy's subordinates, it must be that the visitor was not kind. At this time, one of the officers said to Sarkis, "Sir, please allow me to make a briefing." Sarkis said, "Okay, you report quickly." Sarkis couldn't wait, and continued to wait here. The security officer hurried inside to report. Sarkis and his men are waiting here. One of Sarkis' men asked Sarkis, "Lord Sarkis, why don't you just rush in?" Sarkis looked at him, and then at the office building of the security force headquarters. "We are negotiating with soldiers who have gone through brutal battles. Soldiers have dignity. So give him face first," Sachs said meaningfully. "All soldiers and those who fight, despise life for dignity." Sarkis deliberately behaved politely, which was regarded as giving General Durham face. in an office on the 8th floor of the Security Force Headquarters office building. General Durham had an urgent discussion with a group of senior officers of the Vigilante. General Dulun put his hands behind his back and looked at a map of the waters of Gaia Island on the wall. Behind him are more than a dozen senior officers of the security force. "We have really reached a dead end," General Dulun said with emotion. At this time, a senior officer behind him said, "General Durham, we still have a way out." General Durham turned around and looked at him. The other party was wearing a military coat worn by a senior officer, and there were exquisite medals on the coat. This senior officer has a sharp face and sharp eyes, as if he can always grasp the weakness of his opponent. "Commander Drock, what do you have in mind?" General Durran said. This senior officer is Drake, commander of the 5th Army Corps of the Security Force. The 5th Army led by Captain Drake has not participated in the battle with the Sarushan United Army. It is the only well-preserved legion among the 5 legions of the security forces. However, General Durran hated the leader of the Drake army very much in his bones. Because the leader of Drake's army is very selfish and mercenary. Moreover, he also uses various seemingly high-sounding but irresistible reasons to preserve his strength and avoid fierce battles with the enemy. This made General Durham extremely disgusted. Moreover, Commander Drake himself is very good at establishing a good relationship with Grandet. This made him able to hold important positions in the security army for a long time during Grandet's lifetime. However, in this critical battle before, the leader of the Drake army made an extremely serious mistake. He did not support the battle at the port of Magic Valley City, nor did he support the battle at the Grandet Mansion. The reason given by Commander Drake during the war was that he insisted on defending the inland areas of Gaia Island to prevent enemy sneak attacks. But this was obviously done because he was worried about the loss of his own troops and to preserve his strength. General Durran was furious about this, but the matter was irreversible, and Grandet was eventually killed. He can't sanction the leader of Drake's army now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 587. ID Con 171115. This is because the 5th Legion under Commander Drake has 2,000 elite soldiers. General Dulun currently has only more than 1,000 remnants of the security forces in his hands. General Durran, a dignified commander-in-chief of the security forces, actually had fewer troops than a subordinate army commander. Coupled with the fact that Drake was very close to his troops, and that Grandet was dead, General Durham could not directly order the officers and soldiers of the 5th Army to arrest Drake. What's more important is that the remaining troops of the security army are now in dire straits, and those who are not worthy have to fight with Drake. The leader of the Drake Legion looked at General Durran with cunning and sharp eyes. "General Dulun, the death of Mayor Grandet is irreversible. However, Magic Valley City and the security forces cannot be without a future. Therefore, I think that our security forces should join forces with the security forces and those who control the city as soon as possible. The industrial cadres who are the lifeline of the city's economy, speed up the election of a new leader. Only in this way can Magic Valley City continue to maintain stability and prosperity," Drake's army leader said cunningly. General Durran looked at the commander of the Drake army, and he knew the general meaning of the other party. But his statement is also very reasonable. "That's it, Commander Drake. Who do you think is the new best leader?" General Durran said. The leader of the Drake army looked at General Durran slyly and said, "I have several candidates here. But I want to ask first, General Durran, are you willing to take on this role?" General Durran shook his head and said, "I'm just a soldier. Apart from being good at commanding battles, I'm not interested in busy government affairs." General Durran is such a person. He is good at commanding battles, able to control thousands of troops. But he hates secular government affairs. Because politicians are different from hard-blooded soldiers. Politicians need to be diplomatic and consider the interests of multiple parties. General Du Lun has an upright character. Even if he becomes the leader of Demon Valley City, which is densely populated by interest groups, he will find many things that are unimaginably troublesome. Therefore, General Duran was unwilling to play the role of Mayor Grandet during his lifetime. The commander of the Drake army seemed to be a little regretful and said, "That is really a pity. But in this case, we must choose a more suitable and willing candidate. General Duran and everyone, do you think you are right?" General Du Lun looked directly at this cunning man, and said, "The situation is critical now, so hurry up and say who you think is the best candidate." The expression on the face of the leader of the Drake army suddenly became a little smug. "I think the best candidate should definitely not be from the security force or the guard force. He should be an industrial cadre. Among them, I am most optimistic about the president of the Grandet Bank," Commander Drake said. After hearing this, General Du Lun thought for a while and said, "You said him, I have seen that governor too. He is also a profit-seeking person. But if he is the mayor, he is also competent." After hearing this sentence, the leader of the Drake army became very happy. In fact, in private, the leader of the Drake army has a very good personal relationship with the president of the Grandet Bank. The two are often in contact with each other. There is even an interest transaction secretly. This time the mayor of Grandet suddenly died unexpectedly. The idea of the leader of Drake's army is to try to make the president of the Grandet Bank the mayor. In this way, he can obtain amazing benefits. Of course, because of the urgency of the situation, he didn't even inform the president of Grandet Bank of his thoughts. But he didn't even know that Eddie, one of Bellamy's 3 go-getters, had already conquered the president of the Grandet Bank. The commander of the Drake army was extremely proud. Since General Duran did not object, and other senior officers did not object, it was a good thing. "That's it, let's get ready," Commander Drake said. But suddenly a security force officer broke into the office. "General Duran, it's not good," the security force officer said nervously with sweat on his face. General Du Lun, the head of the Drake army, and other senior officers all looked at him. "What's going on, so nervous?" General Durham frowned and asked him. The security officer looked at General Du Lun, and said quickly, "The big thing is not right, the people sent by Bellamy are here." This news changed the expressions of everyone present like a bolt from the blue. General Durham, the commander of the Drake army, and the senior officers looked at each other. General Durham continued to ask the officer, "So where is he?" "Waiting at the gate," the security officer said. General Duran asked again, "Then what else did he say?" The security officer continued, "He said he wanted to discuss the matter with General Durham." General Du Lun's majestic face quickly became complicated. He looked at the commander of Drake's army and the senior officers. Those present, including General Durham and the leader of Drake's army, knew very well what it meant for Bellamy's men to come here at this juncture. The leader of the Drake army said to General Duran, "Bellamy is an unofficial superpower hidden in Gaia Island. It's better to meet." General Du Lun was silent for a moment, then said, "Okay." He looked at the security officer who was reporting and said, "Invite him in. Ask him to come to this office together. I'll talk to him." "Follow the order." The security officer hurriedly went down to do his work. After the security force officer left, General Duran and the head of the Drake army looked at each other. In fact, they were able to judge Bellamy's intentions. At this time, he must have sent someone to obtain Grandet's former position. But they are reluctant to say it directly. In front of the gate of the security force headquarters office building, Sachs and the men behind him continued to wait here. Some of those subordinates were very unhappy, and many of them wanted to rush in directly. However, Sarkis acted more calmly, and they obediently obeyed Sarkis' orders. At this moment, suddenly the door opened again. The security officer just now walked out quickly. "This gentleman, please," the security officer said very politely. Sarkis looked at him, and then at the subordinates behind him. "Thank you for waiting here," Sarkis said to his men. "Yes, Master Sarkis," the subordinates said. Sarkis, led by the security force officer, entered the gate of the security force headquarters office building together. The two first walked to the wide corridor on the first floor. As soon as he entered this wide corridor, Sarkis saw heavily armed security forces on both sides. After all, this is the headquarters of the security forces, although the security forces suffered heavy losses in the previous battles. But there are still some mighty officers and soldiers left. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 588. ID Con 1711116. The security forces soldiers on both sides of the corridor saw Sachs wearing a loose grey woolen coat, but they felt that the other party was like a demon hiding murderous intentions. Sarkis continued to follow the vigilante officer, and the two walked to a staircase together. "Start walking up the stairs to the second floor above. In this way, the third floor, the fourth floor, the fifth floor, the sixth floor, the seventh floor, and finally the eighth floor." Sarkis walked to the eighth floor without a word, expressionless. The vigilante officer proceeded to lead him to the door of a room. "It's here, it's here," the security force officer said. Then the security officer stood straight outside the door and began to report. "Guests have been brought. Please come in," a deep voice from inside said. The security officer pushed open the door of the room. Sachs then walked in. There was a slam of a door closing behind him, and the door to the room was closed. Sarkis looked at the people in the room. He first saw a man with a burly body and a majestic face. This man was a man of extraordinary appearance, wearing a well-made military greatcoat and epaulets representing senior officers. He was without a doubt the most handsome man in the room. In addition, there is a man with a sharp face and sly eyes, who is also dressed as a high-ranking officer. The people in other rooms can also be judged to be senior military officers. "Everyone, I'm really sorry to bother you today. Let me introduce myself first. I am Sarkis under Bellamy. I have something I want to talk to General Durham, the Commander-in-Chief of the Security Force," Sarkis said. General Durham looked at Sarkis, a burly man with long light blue wavy hair and wearing a loose grey woolen coat. "But it is like a knife that can be attacked from the scabbard at any time. I am General Durham." "What do you want me to do?" General Durand said to Sachs. "So you are General Durham," Sarkis said to General Durham. He looked at this burly and majestic general. His eyes were cold like poisonous snakes, but he was always paying attention to the other's expression. General Durand looked at this cold, burly man and said, "Let's just tell you what you are here for." Sarkis looked at General Durham. "I was sent here by Mr. Bellamy. The purpose is to discuss very important matters with you," Sarkis said. Speaking of this, Sachs' tone became very meaningful. Commander Drock and other senior officers looked at Sarkis with great attention. Sarkis looked at General Durand and continued, "The leader of Magic Valley City may need a new character." General Dulun's majestic face became even uglier. What he expected turned out to be a reality. The leader of Drake's army also felt a little bit in his heart. He originally wanted to elect the president of the Grandet Bank to replace Grandet's mayor. But now it seems absolutely impossible. The other senior officers also looked at each other in blank dismay, thinking that once Bellamy intervened, things would be very difficult. Sachs continued, "The passing of Mayor Grandet is a pity. However, this prosperous city still needs to move forward. Therefore, it needs a capable and great person to guide this place." At the same time, he appeased all kinds of businessmen and tourists. Therefore, Mr. Bellamy, who has been secretly protecting Gaia Island and Magic Valley City for a long time, is the one who meets this requirement. Mr. Bellamy is willing to come down to the heavy responsibility of governance. Sachs made the purpose very clear. Bellamy's all about ruling the city. General Duran looked at Sarkis, and his heart was filled with endless anger. To put it bluntly, Bellamy wanted to take everything in the city. Although General Durham had never officially met Bellamy. But he knew very well that Bellamy was a greedy and crazy powerful pirate. Bellamy often plundered other people's wealth and things he considered valuable. He is an out-and-out villain. General Duran also knew about Grandet's collusion with Bellamy during his lifetime. However, because Grandet gave Bellamy a lot of benefits, Bellamy basically rarely did anything to Magic Valley City. Makes the whole in a relatively safe relationship. But now Bellamy took advantage of Grandet's death in the battle with the Saruyama Alliance army. Taking advantage of the fire and looting, I want to seize the Magic Valley City. This made General Durham, who despised Bellamy in his bones, furious. Sarkis also saw the twitching of General Duran's expression. "What's wrong, General Duran?" "Why get angry?" Sarkis said coldly but politely. General Duran looked at Sarkis and said, "Bellamy wants to move the city, right? But why do I have to send you to find me?" Sarkis said, "That's because Mr. Bellamy wanted to rule the city better and needed some talented people to assist him. That's why he sent me, his confidant, to personally persuade the general to lead the security force. Be loyal to him. This is good for all parties. Think about it. The generals and security officers and soldiers can get great benefits and generous treatment. The people in Magic Valley City can get safety and prosperity. And Mr. Bellamy can realize his value. Does the general have to refuse such a good thing?" General Durham was quite angry, but he still held back and just glared at Sarkis. Sarkis saw that General Durham was difficult to persuade. He took out a piece of letter paper from his clothes. "This is Mr. Bellamy's handwritten letter. General, please read it." Sarkis presented the letter paper to General Durham and said. General Dulun didn't say much, and took the letter directly. The majestic general looked at the content on the letter paper. "Dear General Duran. Regarding the death of Mayor Grandet. I really feel very sorry. But Magic Valley City always needs to move forward. Someone needs to protect it and promote its prosperity and progress. Then this person needs to be strong and capable. A sense of responsibility. Because I recommend myself to be the new leader of Magic Valley City. But to govern such a great city requires some talents with strong abilities. General Duran, you are an amazing and great military genius. If you can be loyal to me, then the security force will not only get a new expansion and revival, but also very generous treatment. General Dulun will also become one of my confidants. This is not just for my private wishes. It is for the future of Magic Valley City. I hope the general can agree to be loyal to me who has ambition." After General Duran finished reading the letter, his expression softened. Sarkis also saw this, and hurriedly said, "General Durham, Mr. Bellamy is very sincere. Please choose a new leader."